ready to go. We've got Tom on the Regenesis in the bottom, and then we have Andreas with Fiendsmith Mitsurugi on the top.
I don't think the Fiendsmith Mitsurugi name does it justice.
No, not with the list we've
everything
seen.
that's going on there. But let's find out what he can do with it.
So going first with this one, he's got for going second hand, that's probably a little bit ideal with a Nibiru and a Fluoros, but being able to send a Nibiru to summon down the Diabell. I also feel that starting like this is if your opponent doesn't know exactly what you're on, instantly they might go, oh, it's a White Forest strategy, and then you can completely shift it. And there is the Ghost Mourner. So this is something that we saw on Tom's list, and I was very interested to see the choice of selection for the Ghost Mourner. Being able to be utilizing that on the Diabell really does kind of slow that engine down. And now we're about to see the reveal of the Mitsurugi Habakuri to kind of open up the door for that particular route of play as well.
Yeah, Ghost Mourner is a card that's kind of like secondary to maybe cards like Effect Veiler and Infinite Impermanence. I feel like, to me, it kind of often ranks a little lower than those. So to see and I feel like Veiler and Impermanence are cards people haven't been playing, but Tom going completely the opposite direction, saying, not only do I want Veiler, not only do I want Imperm, but I want 3 more effect negations in the form of Ghost Mourner.
Yeah, this is just so very quickly responded to. Didn't even need to think about if he wanted to use them. It was very simple. Mourner on the first, Ash on the second, Imperm on the third. Now it would be interesting to see if there is another hand trap to follow this up with. Otherwise, we're going to see the power and resilience of the Fiendsmith line.
Fiendsmith is very good. Caesar is a very good card against a lot of different decks, and I feel like it might be something on Andreas' mind right now. However, Caesar not so good against the strategy of Regenesis, right? Because they don't start a chain when they special summon. They just special summon themselves straight from their hand. So maybe it's a deck you can just kind of look it in the eye and just ignore it. It's fantastic, isn't it? Because I mean, every other deck I've played this format, it feels like, you know, your opponent has a Caesar, you think, God, like, what do I do?
Yeah.
But maybe not with Regenesis.
Well, it's exactly that, and I feel that the best thing about Regenesis is one of the extra deck cards of choice will be the Superstar Slayer Typhon. For the pure fact that all of their monsters are base of 2500 attack, but then they can actually add a Typhon on top of any of their monsters, and that will then give them the ability to out anything that is higher than 3000 attack. So it kind of gives them that balance of, if they can't get over something that is above 2500 attack, Typhon can come into play. Not only will it be stronger at 2900 to try and deal with that, but then also provides the ability, should they wish to return another monster of 3000 or more attack, or any monster from the field to the hand, and that will then allow them to kind of break through these considered stronger fields. And it looks like we are going to be going straight for the Caesar, I assume, from what we've kind of seen here.
Unless there's another rank 6. But given the number of different cards, and it's, oh no, it's in defense as well. I feel like I see people do kind of put things in defense occasionally, maybe play around lightning storms and things, but putting it in defense is going to be devastating here because it can be run over by any Regenesis monster now. Yeah,
it looks like there was a spell in Tom's hand, and that's either going to be Regenesis to search it out and get it going, or it's going to be Code. And it looks like we're starting off with Archfiend revealing what I can only make out to be the Sage, meaning that Regenesis will summon itself down and then allow you to search any Regenesis card from the entire archetype. And we've already revealed Sage, knowing the next move would be to get Sage onto the field, and Sage acts as a technical Omni-Negate by sending another Regenesis from the hand or field to the graveyard in order to negate.
Yeah, Archfiend, like the absolute premium starter for this deck, allowing you to search any card, and also like one of the things the deck struggles with, because most of the cards require you to have another monster on the field already. Archfiend is the one that can summon itself just by revealing one from your hand instead of having a monster with 2500 attack on your field. So very important to have access to your Archfiend.
The other thing to kind of consider as well is if you're facing up against the Regenesis strategy yourself, you don't really want to be leaving any monster with 2500 attack or defense on the field, because then you're just providing your opponent with free requirements, so they can just start slowing down their Sages for pretty much without needing to have another 25 on their field. Same with Dragon, same with Warrior. Archfiend is the only one that will require you to reveal, but it just allows you to kind of regain a bit of resource, so you don't need to rush to get a monster with those particular stats on the field as early as possible.
No, I didn't know that. That's quite cool, but you can use your opponent's monsters.
Oh yeah, when the set was released, it was actually a very, very interesting one at a sealed event, being able to kind of utilize those cards. Everyone was always a bit scary putting a 2500 monster on their field, but the Regenesis really did put in a lot of work, being able to kind of give you that aggression that you might need in those particular scenarios and tournaments.
Make for quite a funny mirror match. I mean, I'm sure they're not seeing that many mirror matches at the moment, but maybe one day.
No, exactly that. And then being able to Also remember, with the Ghost Mourner, because we linked off the Diabell, you actually lose, or Andres actually lost the life points for that one. The additional benefit of something like the Ghost Mourner kind of makes the job for Regenesis a little bit easier. And as you've mentioned, with the Caesar being in defense position, again, it's another target that could be very easily attacked over, whereas previously, with his attack stats being higher than 2,500, it kind of makes it a little bit more difficult to deal with.
Yeah, there is is it the Sage that gains 2,500?
No, so it's Lord that will gain 2,500, but only during the battle phase, and he doesn't play the Lord, which is always quite an interesting one, because I've always felt that being able to have a monster that can go up to 5,000 attack during the battle phase would already be quite useful in order for you to kind of deal with any high attack threats.
Hey, your opponent just plays it in defense.
Exactly. Let your opponent do the job for you. So it looks like we're going to be getting the Sage to the field, and as previously mentioned, this is the technical Omni Negate for the deck strategy. We do know that there is a Regenesis Birth in the hand, so that is a card that could be sent should Tom want to negate it. And then there's one unknown spell card, which I believe is going to be Regenesis, or even Regenesis Code, which I personally really do like Regenesis Code. The ability to act as a form of a emergency teleport, being able to summon out any of your Regenesis monsters from the deck, at the cost of not being able to access your extra deck until the end of your opponent's turn, and the monster gets sent to the graveyard during the end phase of your opponent's turn as well. But as Tom mentioned at the start, all the Regenesis are just going to say, yep, absolutely fine, I'm going to come back to the hand during my opponent's end phase, as long as I've been sent during my opponent's turn.
Yeah, it's not really much of a downside, is it?
No, get free advantage off the back of that. Yeah,
it just comes back.
It looks like Paradise is going to be activated. Now, does Tom feel comfortable enough to sacrifice off either the Regenesis Archfiend or a Regenesis card in the hand in order to push through for the final damage? When you look at this, we've got a Lacrima in defense and a Caesar in defense. Desiree is going to attempt to send one of the Regenesis.
I guess you might as well negate this because you're going to lose your Sage if you don't.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like you kind of, if you do need to enter in the grind state a little bit more, you want to keep the Sage on the field for during your opponent's turn at the very least. Oh, interesting. He's going to let the Sage go.
Do you have another way to summon it, maybe with the code?
Well, the trapped card does give you the ability that during your opponent's turn, either you can send a card from your deck to the graveyard to turn one of your opponent's monsters face down defense position, or you can send it to the graveyard and summon back as many Regenesis monsters from the grave or banished with different names. But you send them to the graveyard during the end phase, and as we previously mentioned, that doesn't make any difference because they're all going to come back to the hand. So it looks like he might want to be holding the trap card to do that effect. And he is on 3 copies of the Regenesis Birth. So
yeah, here comes Typhon. I mean, to me, this looks a slightly odd way around because I'd rather attack the Lacrima and Typhon the Caesar. So that way your opponent's Lacrima is in the hand, in the grave, rather than the hand. I mean, there is something to be said sometimes. Fiendsmith cards do quite a lot in the graveyard, so maybe worth sometimes putting it in the hand rather than the graveyard, but we'll see how it goes with Andreas.
Yeah, it does put Andreas under a bit of a predicament as well. Now that he's got the Lacrima in the hand, whether he wants the Lacrima to be a useful normal summon or whether he wants to utilize something like the Habakuri to work its way into a Mitsurugi. Now the question is, Habakuri was ashed.
So you can't use it
only
again.
Be once per duel.
It's once per duel.
Yeah. No worries on the Habakuri on that one. It looked like there was a Bestial Balldrake used for the top deck. And this is the other thing that I really do like about the Regenesis is they don't really play, if you're not playing Lord, you're not playing lots of lights and darks. So the Bestials themselves are not going to be effective against the Regenesis strategy, but you can get the utilization of your own graveyard by being able to banish some of those. And I think we're just reading the Regenesis Birth, which can activate as a technical Soul Drain, which is crazy, because we're now about to see Regenesis Archfiend and Sage enter the field of play, and on top of that, the Regenesis Archfiend will search out a follow-up for the next turn, and Sage sits there as a nice Omni Negate, being 2,500 defense, alongside the Archfiend, which can just be free send fodder that could then come back to the hand during the end phase. So, as you mentioned at the start, the grind game and the resource management of Regenesis is very, very powerful.
Yeah, this is super powerful, and he's going to summon 2 monsters back, and it's just super threatening, because the 2 guys are going to come back, and then going to search one more, and then during the end phase, he's going to get them all back to his hand. So Tom's basically setting up you have to do something this turn, otherwise I'm going to have so much advantage next turn. If you're not ending the game now, then you're going to be in trouble. But it looks like, we're just chaining a Bestial now, maybe, just to get it on the field before...
Yeah, quite possibly. I feel like if you don't have that on the field, we're going to be burning through more resource. We know that the Lacrima is in the hand, so that's probably going to be his ideal normal summon. And the one benefit, and this could be in the detriment of being able to return that Lacrima, Beasteel is a level 6 Dark, and Lacrima is a level 4 Light. Very possibly seeing a Chaos Angel. Not that that's going to be able to do much under the Typhon, but it will be strong enough to deal with the Typhon, or even the Sage, without activating an effect.
Yeah, I was thinking this, and I'm also thinking, what do we have to answer the Chaos Angel? Is it just Infinite Impermanence?
I feel with the Chaos Angel, if you're able to make it unaffected, it would just be the Infinite Impermanence. Because the Typhon, if it's unaffected by monster effects, won't be able to do anything. We're going to be using Regenesis code here, and as I mentioned previously, it acts as an emergency teleport. This is going to be very important, because this will, in theory, if I was in Tom's shoes, I would be bringing out Regenesis Warrior. Regenesis Warrior has the ability to tribute itself to then target a monster their opponent controls and return it to the hand. So this will shut off the access to the Regenesis to the Chaos Angel, if returning the Lacrima, because then the next best thing that could happen would be the Engraver coming back from the graveyard. It looks like we're going to be getting the Engraver back, which is quite the smart way of playing this, because we can only return a level 6, and in theory, it doesn't matter which one you do return, because Chaos Angel could still enter the field.
Yeah, I want to have a little look at maybe the extra deck of Andreas to see what's going to go on. But, yeah, that's quite a complicated game.
Yeah. It looks like there are a couple of other link plays, but remember, we've gone through quite a lot of them during the first turn. Desiree is already in the graveyard from Paradise, unless that's just been recycled back into the extra deck. It looks like we're going to be going the Requiem route to work its way into another Engraver. But then we also have the Requiem effect in the graveyard to re-equip, and then we can utilize the Engraver's effect to try and bait out a form of interaction. Remember, there's still Warrior and there is still Sage. So in theory, if we were to utilize the effect of the Requiem here and try to use the effect to destroy it, could be met with Sage. There's no more set spells or traps for Tom. I can't imagine he's got any more hand traps left. All of those were used on turn 1, unless we have a very, very powerful Beasteel or a very powerful interaction. Okay, so we're going to be chaining the Warrior to return the Engraver to the hand. This is also another one.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about bouncing that Engraver. That's got quite a powerful effect in the hand.
Well, it's exactly what we're going to see here, and this is going to lead to Tract, and in turn lead to a Lurry. We've already gone through Requiem though, so I'm not too sure how far Lurry will go. Looking at the extra deck now, we've got options for SP Little Knight. I don't believe we've used Fiendsmith Sequence, so that could still play a role.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of different options, and he has, despite running all of the different engines, he's managed to sneak in the Chaos Angel into his extra deck. Do you think that's a premium? Is that a card you could ever see yourself from cutting if you're running Fiendsmiths?
I think it's very tricky to cut, because I feel that, not just in Fiendsmith, but in any deck that can naturally make a card on the level of Chaos Angel, being able to banish, and then on top of that, being able to either make your synchro monsters unaffected, which is an additional bonus if you play more synchros, but then also to make your monsters not being able to be destroyed by battle, can be such a big turn in the game, because being able to set on a 2800 defender with a 3500 attack in the form of Chaos Angel gives you your aggressor and your defender, and then all of your other monsters become walls that your opponent needs to try and get past through card effect, and not just by using high attack stat monsters in the form of a Typhon, or a Archfiend, or a Sage. So it is a really good kind of matchup, and I would personally be aiming to go for a Chaos Angel in this particular route of play.
Yeah, I really feel like against Regenesis in particular, making all of your monsters indestructible by battle is probably going to be quite annoying, because I feel like that's kind of how they're going to try and gain their advantage, just by kind of threatening them with higher attack monsters, and only because you don't have so many interruptions. It's not like a big combo deck where you end up with so many interruptions your opponent just can't do anything. It's more like you have to be kind of quite judicious. You have to have a few interruptions, make sure you're going to survive, and then overwhelm them over a few turns with card advantage. But if you're taking away that high attack threat by having monsters that can't be destroyed by battle, that could be quite a big difference.
Yeah, especially in a deck such as the Fiendsmith Mitsurugi and the Deer Bells and everything else in between, it gives you that ability to start slowing the game down to a pace until you start getting access to cards like Animakumo, until you start getting access to your entire, even going for the Hallowed Azamina to work you into either the Sylvie, to give you that protection so that once a Sage is set up, you're able to negate it and disrupt it.
I'm wondering though if Andreas is a little stuck here for access to his other engines that are not Fiendsmith.
Yeah.
Once you've got that Habakiri Ash Blossomed, it becomes quite hard then to like get going, because if you're running 60 cards, you may not draw the cards that you need. So you need the ritual spell, a pre-prep. I mean, any other Mitsurugi card will help him start, but like you do actually have to just draw them. Because in a situation like this, you think, oh, can you just go King of the Feral Imps? But it's a bit ugly. You've already used your normal summon. What do you search if not the Habakiri? So maybe he's just stuck with his Fiendsmith cards. This Luri in defense mode is just going to have to survive by itself. The attack here doesn't, I mean, he might as well, but at the end of the day, the Sage was going to get sent to the graveyard anyway because of the birth.
I suppose one very important thing that I might be considering if I was Andreas is not to make a second extra deck summon. And the reason I say that is because he may be under the assumption that there's only one Typhon in that extra deck. The fear of making a second means that, or making a second extra deck summon, so being Chaos Angel into sequence, opens up the door so that Tom can make a second Typhon during the next turn and return whatever monster that could be of a threat above 3,000 attack.
Yeah, I think he's already used Requiem though, so he's
correct. Yeah, he's already within that boundary.
But I'm struggling to see what the advantage of the Desiree over just leaving the Chaos Angel was. Chaos Angel seems like quite threatening, and a lot of decks without access to pretty much exactly infinite impermanence just can't deal with it. So I feel like leaving it up. I mean, the Desiree might not end up achieving that much.
No, exactly that. I feel that if you'd left the Chaos Angel and then the Lurry, being made with a dart would still mean that Lurry couldn't be destroyed by card effect. So, couldn't be destroyed by battle. So it kind of makes it very awkward, because then you would still force Tom to go into a second Typhon, to have to return the Chaos Angel, to then still attack the Lurry. So it still made a couple of hoops for Tom to have to go through. Another important thing is you want to try and get rid of any monster with 2,500 attack or defense, because unfortunately the Regenesis Archfiend is going to come back to the hand unless Andreas has a way to put that back into the deck. Once that happens, you can just start spamming down your monsters again. So you would reveal one, summon down your Archfiend, Archfiend would search, you'd have the Warrior coming back to the field, you'd also have the Sage coming back to the field, and the chances are the card you search for the Archfiend would ultimately end up being Dragon, or could be a code to move you in. I suppose one other thing to mention that both players need to remember is, because the Regenesis code was activated during Andreas' turn, actually Tom can't go into a second Typhon during the next turn, because he's locked out the extra deck until the end of the next turn, which is actually quite important to remember. And I feel this is where SP, I would personally be banishing the Archfiend. Yeah, exactly that, because now, without having access to the Archfiend, as long as there is not a monster with 2,500 attack or defense on the field, you won't be able to get your other Regenesis back to the field.
Yeah, that's quite clever, actually, banishing that Archfiend. So Tom does have access to Birth. I think he already searched with Archfiend.
So he set the Birth on the previous turn and used it to bring back Sage and Archfiend.
Yeah, I think the Archfiend searched another Birth.
Oh, okay.
But it's still going to take him a full turn. You have to set it. I mean, you know, this is the problem with trap cards nowadays. It takes quite a while. He's also going to have those Regenesis monsters in his hand where they cannot be summoned from Birth. Although I think you can summon from the Banished, right, with it? With
Birth, you can summon from the Banished, yes. So he'll be able to get Archfiend back with the Birth. Code can banish to revive one from the Banished. So actually, the SP's probably helped in this scenario. We're actually going to be able to add those back. So that's probably something as well. That all these little additional effects that these cards have is really what's going to trip a lot of players up. But as long as they all remember them, being able to banish code is actually going to bring about the Regenesis Archfiend.
Yeah, I think this is probably just one of those unfamiliarity situations where if you didn't know to look out for that, you might think, oh, you know, they come back from the grave, so I'll just banish this one that lets you start. But if you didn't know that, there's going to be proper trouble.
I feel that we're in a very good position here, so this should be game. Attack with Warrior, as long as you don't activate any effect, which he hasn't done. Attack with Warrior, get the final 900 damage on that one, and then 5,000 coming in from Archfiend and Sage to pretty much take the duel. And it looks exactly.
I think when I first read the card, I was like, oh, once per duel. Duels, you know, you don't often need to use a card more than once in a duel. Often your first turn could be so overwhelming, but in that case, it was super duper relevant that couldn't use it again.
Exactly, and it looks like Andreas has opened up a Habakuri. Are we going to see a repeat? It does look like there's an Imperm and an Effect Veiler in the hand of Tom, followed up by 2 spells and what I can only imagine is a Regenesis monster. With Habakuri being able to resolve, The only thing that you really kind of fret after you've resolved all of these routes of play, and when you do your first edge, might be a drawn Lockbird, but the effect of Habakuri, I think, is absolutely amazing. Being able to summon and tribute the same card and then utilize that card's tribute effect is very, very important for the deck. Being able to get to Mitsurugi Ritual as well.
Yeah, I think, I was talking, maybe I was like, oh, maybe these Veiler and Imperms, they're not so bad. But now we're seeing where Habakiri just sliding past the Imperm and Veiler, and you're still going to get this Ritual summon off. And despite your opponent having multiple hand traps, like what are they going to do in this situation? Because all of the important effects are activating in the hand or in the graveyard.
Yeah. It's also very important as Andreas goes through his deck. We can see that he's actually sided in the Ghost Mourners for this particular matchup. So that's going to be quite an interesting one to see.
Yeah, there's not so many targets. I guess it's exactly Archfiend.
Yeah.
Get rid of the search and deal 2,500 to your opponent. Can be a bit overlooked sometimes, I think.
I also feel Ghost Ogre would be quite an interesting one. It's kind of specific, but if you were to activate, for example, Regenesis Archfiend and you Ghost Ogred it, there's no longer a 2,500 monster left on the field for your opponent to then spawn the rest of their Regenesis. On the flip side, when you activate Regenesis Sage, you have to send a Regenesis card from the hand or field, and again, if you respond with a Ghost Ogre to it, at least that Sage also leaves the field of play. So Ghost Ogre could actually be quite an effective card in particular matchups if you look at it that way. Yeah,
I'm wondering though, do you think Andreas is like clocked that Tom is not running any other engine? Because you say like, oh, it's going to be, he won't be able to get another 2/5, and we know that it will be quite hard for him because he's only running Regenesis cards, but surely, I mean, if I was playing against Regenesis, you just think, oh, maybe he just didn't draw his Kashtira's or whatever. It wouldn't really occur to me straight off that he's like, just not running anything else.
No, exactly. Inside information, being able to know those ones. No, it's a very, very good valid point on that one.
It's often like, it's quite funny when we're commentators, we can see everything. We're like, oh yeah, you got to think about this, this, and this, but maybe what's going through their head is, totally different to what we can see.
Yeah, so it looks like we're going to be working our way into the Fiendsmith engine here. No interaction from Tom as of yet. We do know there are some interactions. I suppose it's kind of picking the right point. My ultimate question is, you kind of need to stop the Anma Kumo, now that it's in rotation, coming back from the grave. Again, no hesitation on that one. As soon as Lacrima hit the field, he knew that was going to get Effect Veilered.
Yeah, this Effect Veiler feels difficult here because the Murakumo just discarding another card. Although having said that, you can just discard a Mitsurugi, a Regenesis card will just come straight back. Yeah, which is quite fun, I think.
Yeah, that is quite funny considering that it's still their opponent's turn. You don't really lose any form of advantage. You do want to make sure you're, if you are on the Andreas' side, you want to make sure that the discard happens during your opponent's turn. And it doesn't look like we forced the Anma Kumo to make Tom discard an additional card in that sense.
Maybe just, I feel like you just activate it, to be honest, because your opponent doesn't have to play it, and sometimes when you have negates, it's really important to make sure that you save it for the best time. And but because it's a negate that your opponent can choose to kind of ignore, you might as well just make them spend the card, because he might not have a Regenesis card in his hand.
I completely agree. Sometimes it is just worth the risk, taking away some hand advantage. We've already seen how powerful Regenesis is. If they do have a Regenesis monster, at least you have that information of knowing exactly what's going to be coming to your way. And information is always going to be very key in duels like this.
Yeah, just having a little chat with the judges to explain what's gone on there. Looks like the mirror just summoning from the grave. And then the Murakumo summoning itself back from the grave as well.
Yeah, working our way into a Link 2. IP Masquerena. So we're going to be trying to set up the IP Masquerena into SP plays, which I think is quite important. It's kind of a forgotten one. Like, IP seems to drift in and out of formats.
Yeah, I think it's like, if you don't have much better to do, because Mitsurugi doesn't really seem to care about its extra deck that much, so you have a few extra monsters, you just kind of might as well. Here we see that Imperm coming down. Imperm has the edge over Veiler for me in an awful lot of matchups because of the fact that you can hold it for this turn. Yeah. And if there's nothing you particularly want of Veiler, then you can just hold the Imperm, and then you know it'll probably do something on your turn.
Exactly that, and I think that's what it's going to be putting in a bit of work here, because it turns off the IP, which takes away the threat of an SP, and we all know how powerful SP Little Knight can be, being able to technically deal with 2 cards in one go, being able to banish on its summon, but then also when your opponent activates an effect, banish 2 more cards.
And we see Andreas, that's a very, strong investment, I feel, into the IP. I feel like IP is just kind of something you throw out there. If your opponent answers it, whatever, but you make them kind of think about it a bit. But to protect it with your powerful trap negation feels like valuing it very strongly. Do you think he really values the SP? Maybe, as you said before, maybe just once he summons Archfiend, just SP off the board, and then maybe your opponent can't summon any more monsters.
Less to worry about. It's interesting that we've decided to bring back the Kumo. I would have hoped that maybe the Kumo would have been held left in the grave with another way of being able to get it back to the field to trigger off that destruction effect. But it does seem that, I mean, they could go into a different Link monster. Can't imagine which Link monster in the extra deck they would want to go through. It could only be SP Little Knight.
Well, there's always Dynamondo, right?
It could still be quite useful to get it going. Ash Blossom on the Extrav. There's the Regenesis spell, so we're going to be guaranteeing ourselves a Regenesis monster. This would really tell what else Tom has in the hand. If you go for Archfiend, it guarantees you've got a monster with 2500 attack or defense to summon it out. I don't know, I'm not too sure how else would you go with it.
Oh, can you bell this? I don't know, where does it add cards from?
I think it does. I think it sends... So you can either add it to the hand or send it to the graveyard.
Oh, so that you can't bell that.
But then it has a graveyard effect to banish it, which is probably what they're looking at. You banish it from the graveyard to revive a Regenesis from the grave. So I don't think you can bell its add effect.
Yeah, I feel like Bell's one of those cards where the first time you read it, you're like, oh, okay. And then, like, the more you read other cards, you're like, wow, you can bell this. You can bell that. You can just bell everything.
I think one of the classics are Nadir Servant. Being able to remember you can bell that. And the Melodious spell card. I'm trying to remember which one it was. There's one that you can also bell, and a lot of people are like, oh my god, you can bell that as well. I think it's Ostinato. I was like, that's crazy.
I don't think everyone at home could see this, but you mentioned Melodious, and John Alexis
just ears pricked up.
He was like, somebody mentioned Melodious. Just appeared.
You have to do it when he's on stream, just whisper Melodious and just... So it looks like we've got access to the Regenesis Archfiend on this one.
So here comes the Archfiend. I saw a Nibiru being discarded, so that must have been the Murakumo.
Yeah, the Murakumo. Looks like we're going to be adding the Regenesis code, which is a very good option to add on this one, because it now means that even if we go IP with the Makumo into an SP and get rid of the Regenesis Archfiend, we still have access to another monster with 2500 attack or defense to then special summon down the other monster. And I feel that this is what's going to happen here, because if the monster in the hand were revealed to be Sage, it means that the next play that Tom can make would be to summon down Sage, and as you mentioned, doesn't start a chain. So it instantly means that if an IP wants to use this effect, I would probably be more than confident to say that the Sage would respond to negate that happening.
You do have to watch out, though, putting all of your monsters in play against a potential Murakumo, right? Because we see that IP has now put the Murakumo in the grave, and you've got to think that there is a Prayers face down, ready to bring the Murakumo back for the millionth time.
Yeah.
Just keeps coming back.
Exactly that, and I feel that this is where it's kind of really going to start taking a turn. So being able to activate the code does unfortunately mean that Tom won't be able to access the Typhon, which would be a direct kind of one thing less to worry about with the Makumo. Kind of try not to activate another effect. You probably want to be getting rid of that SP Little Knight. I can only imagine that at a certain point that the SP is threatened, that being able to activate the Prayers, as you mentioned, to bring back the Makumo could be very important.
Does code negate the effect of the thing it summons, or you just... Oh wow, that's pretty good.
So this is interesting. So we're using the Sinful Spoils trap card Moran to attempt to try and turn Archfiend face down. There is a bit of a benefit on this one that if you wanted to use the Warrior... Oh, scooping it up anyway.
Looks like the players are starting up. I was looking at Tom's deck. I feel like, you know, my side decking, I've become lazy with it because all my decks have put more Charmies in.
Yeah.
So you're just like, oh, I'm going first. Let me just take those 5 cards out. But Tom not playing any more Charmies, which probably makes him one of the few bold players in the room to enter the tournament without any, like, not even Fuelos in the, even in the side deck. Just absolutely nothing. So he's just on the hard plan of, like, stopping his opponents. They're not doing this stuff where you just say, oh, I'm going to let you play a bit, you're going to give me some cards, and then I'm going to come back with all the cards you give me. Just nothing.
No.
Yeah.
So it looks like we have been able to activate and resolve the Pot of Extravagance. See if this has drawn any helpful cards. Ah, there it is, the normal summon. I was so looking forward for him to play this. So this is the Doom Dog. For those of you unfamiliar with this one, if it is sent to the field, to the graveyard, you add a level 8 Fiend. So it's another direct route to get you access to your Regenesis Archfiend. And it's a normal summon that a lot of players playing Regenesis are teching in, especially if you're playing pure or even with Cashteras. Because you don't use your normal summon at all, you open up the space for a consistency card just like this.
Yeah, this is Regenesis' best friend. What do you reckon?
Yeah, 100%. I think how important, the only downside, as we're seeing here, is the Bestial. But even then, it's not really a loss from the graveyard because it's not a card that you need to recur. It's not a card that you need to do anything more after you've sent it. And the added benefit of being able to get an Almirage can be quite useful to protect some of your cards from destruction. And just getting direct access to your Archfiend is incredibly important for the Regenesis strategy, which is why you need consistency above all else in a pure version like this.
I'm wondering just like how terrified I would feel when you have the Doom Dog and you have the pot. I mean, there must be 3 Almirage in his extra deck, surely, but it just
risk and reward. There is 3.
There's 3. Just imagine just one. One game you're gonna do it, and you're gonna
get rid of all 3.
I'm slightly surprised why he put the Durisworm on the field. Didn't really feel like it achieved an awful lot there.
Yeah, maybe again probably because of a card like Doom Dog. It's not a card that you see very often. But speaking of a card we don't see very often, Manju, haven't seen this being utilised for a while now. Some Mitsurugi players do utilise it, but this is obviously another very, very good starter.
Yeah, Manju's one of those cards. It kind of goes in some people's decks. I think it's nice to have some extra engine to side into your deck sometimes. So I think I've seen players like, it's a bit weird to see it in the side deck, but as I was mentioning before about the Molcharmies, if you're ever going first, you want to have something, you can always take out the Molcharmy and just say, I'll just put in a Manju and then it'll be great if I draw it, but it's just mainly a way to get the Molcharmies out. You just need something to take them out for.
Exactly that. Tom is not letting that Habakuri resolve where it's all possible, so we've just been able to utilize Regenesis Sage, send in the Archfiend, and this is what I love about Sage. The fact that it sends, if you're able to send a Regenesis monster, you'll send it during your opponent's turn, the Archfield's just going to come straight back to the hand. It's just absolutely free. We currently have Sage, Archfiend in the hand, and as long as there's another monster with 2500 attack to be revealed, you can bet that the Archfiend's going to be hitting the field.
Yeah, I think we just saw a pass from Andreas, so that one interruption on the Habakiri going to be enough. And you've got to think, with all of the Regenesis cards in play already, Archfiend coming back to the hand, going to reveal, and he's going to be able to summon all of the ones you want. This is going to be really tough for Andreas.
It does look like he's already got Dragon in the hand as well. So Dragon is going to be another monster entering the field at 2500, plus the warrior that he's just searched. We are just going to see these Regenesis get placed straight onto this field straight here. Dealing with the Manju, and then unfortunately that is it for Andreas. The hand didn't look too favourable.